everyone, greetings for the day. We will be looking at continuing with the data validation. Here in the last session, we learned about how data validation can be applied to the Excel worksheets and also understood the various predefined criteria to restrict a cell to be given with any kind of inputs. Now we will be continuing ahead here with another option called as the custom formula, which you can always find under the data tab, where you can drop down and find the data validation here, and you can see there are various other options to go ahead, and then at last what you find is custom. So we'll be looking at this option today, and we'll be continuing further with data validation part 2. So let's get started with it, where I have a sample data here to assist you to make understand how exactly data validation can be applied customly by creating some formulas or making use of some of the formulas. The most important thing about custom validation is to understand that how formulas can be used other than the one which are predefined. So say for example, you have anything where the predefined formats does not fit into that, then you can always go ahead with help of some of the formulas which can assist you to process the same and create your own standard information. So let's create a sample information here, like just giving them a serial number and starting with something called as name. Now let's understand as a scenario here that maybe you want to restrict this entire cell or range to restrict it with only entering of the characters. Now that can be done with help of a formula called as isText. Now that formula restricts a particular cell as a part of data validation to allow the user to enter only characters here. So let's see that you need to select the particular cell which you want to restrict, and then go ahead with data validation here, and then switch it from any value to custom. Now this custom, you need to enter a formula here, and the formula will be isText. So is equal to, all the formulas always have the prefix as is equal to isText, and you need to give the reference of the cell which you are restricting. So in our case it is C4. So open the brackets and mention C4 here, close the brackets and say OK. Now this formula added as a part of data validation will work to evaluate if the entered value is text or not. Usually these is formulas are to check if the entered data in the sheet is true or false. So when you mention in a ready-made information in the sheet and you enter this value as is text, then it will return you either pass or true or false. Now true or false will return stating that if it is a text or not. So let's enter a number here and see if it is allowing you to do that. No, it's restricted. So what we go ahead with is we need to enter a text here, say for example Alex, and yes, it is accepted. But at this point of time we have only applied it to C4. So if you try to do anything in C5, it will again accept even a number. So to do that, or to apply or copy the data validation to all other cells, all you have to do is select the entire cells or entire range which you want it to apply to, and then click on data validation. Now here, as you do that, the Excel prompts you with a message which states that the selection contains some cells without data validation settings. Do you want to extend data validation to these cells as well? Yes, of course. Now that's the only way by which you can copy the data validation to other cells than which you have applied to. So all you have to do is say yes to this, and it will be asking you that this is what we are going to apply. Say OK, fine. Now you can come to any cell irrespective of what you have done earlier and try with another thing, say Elias. Now let's try with number here. No, it's rejected. So retry, maybe say James, and it is accepted. So here is how you can basically copy the data validations to other cells as well. or it's not limited to number of cells within a row, within a column. You can also apply it to a matrix or a table which collects number of rows and number of columns together. Now, another example, what I would like to tell you here is the uniqueness criteria, where I want to define that this particular cell has to have a criteria for the complete column and look for a unique entity. Now, taking the example of employee ID, which must be unique for the entire table, and there should not be any duplicates. So to avoid that duplicacy to happen, we can apply data validation as a part of it. Now, for some formulas, we need to take a extra step. Like, for example, in this case, we need to select the entire range before we apply the data validation, and we must apply it to the whole thing. The reason is, how do you check the uniqueness? The uniqueness is checked when you have compared with all the information. So we need to compare the whole range when we apply the data validation. So it has to be applied to the every single cell of the range. So selecting the cell and the range, obviously, you go ahead with data validation, switch it to custom, and here you will be mentioning another formula, which is called as the next one, COUNTIF. Now, COUNTIF will basically help you to count the numbers or count the number of cells based on the criteria and return you the number. But here we will be using as a part of data validation, and the criteria will check if that entry is there in the entire range or not. So let's see how we can do that. So the formula goes like COUNTIF followed by open the bracket, and we need to define the range, which you can also do by collapsing the table of data validation options, and then define the range what we are looking at. The reason we will be using a dollar here, that's absolute values of the reference, is to restrict the constraint of the range within that, where it not be going to be relative. So say our reference is from D4 to D6. So say D $4 and colon going up till $D $6. Now that is basically going to be the range what you're looking at, and to be compared to the value in D4, which is our input, and close this, which should not be equal to no, it should less than or equal to 1. Now when we say less than or equal to 1, that means it says that what I mentioned in D4 should be compared throughout this range, that is D4 to D6, and the presence of D4 value should not be should be less than or equal to 1. So it should not be either present, or it can be only once which is present. So that is what it will cross check and tell you. The moment it becomes 2, it will return you an error message, or it will not let you do that as a part of data validation. So let's expand it again and press OK. Now let's try entering a unique ID here. Say for example BLR001. Let's try with another cell, BLR001. Now that should restrict me, and yes it is, because it's a duplicacy. So retry, and let's try with 2 now, and yes, it is accepted. So that's how you can define a uniqueness with help of data validation using the formula of COUNTIF, and you can customize the formulas anytime. So there are special precautions which must be taken at certain point of time when using even the known formulas or simple formulas. Now the next one are taking the example of date, where you can also restrict it by using some formula. And here I'll be trying with another thing, which is I would like to restrict this particular cell to avoid any date of joining on weekends. Now say nobody joins on Saturday or Sunday in a company. So how I can restrict this to be limited to a weekday, say Monday to Friday. So you need to select again the cell which you need to apply. For these cases, you don't need to select the entire range. If you wish to continue, you can always expand it. So select the cell, go with data validation. Instead of any values, select custom. And here is what we'll be putting. The formula is equal to AND. Now AND is a logical gate, where you can define multiple criteria and both or all the criteria should be met to satisfy it. So here we have two criteria, so we are using and both should be met. And the criteria will be nobody should be joining on a Saturday and nobody should be joining on Sunday. So how do we put it here? Let's see. So open the brackets. The condition 1 is weekday. Weekday with reference to the cell number. So our cell number here is E4. So open the brackets, put E4. As I'm going to copy this to other cells, I'm not using absolute. So it's going to be relative. Should not be equal to 1. Now, as per Microsoft Windows, the calendar is divided based on the country and another thing. So as I'm using the Indian specific, so here as per Windows calendar, it says Sunday is the first day of the week. So first day of the week is, that's the reason I'm using 1. So say weekday E4 shouldn't be equal to 1. That means it should not be Sunday. And Saturday is being the 7th day of the week. So I would be looking at that now, where I can just say comma, start with another formula weekday, and put the reference as E4 again, close the brackets, shouldn't be equal to 7 as Saturday, and then close the parent brackets here, and hope we have not done any kind of mistakes in parentheses. The brackets, please count them before you say okay, or it's going to give you a syntax error. So let's close this here and then try with a date which is on Sunday or Saturday. So let's check with Sunday here. Sunday is going to be 15th of July. So let's try entering that here. So 7/15/2018 and hit enter. Now that's a Sunday and it is restricting me now. Let's try with a Saturday, which will be 14th of it, and it's not allowed again. But when I try with 13, it's Friday and it must allow. Yes, it is true. Now again, you can just go ahead to apply it to all. That is, select the entire range which you want to be copied with the same validation and say data validation, and it will pick up that the same issue that some of the cells contain no data validation settings. Do you want to extend it? I say yes, and let's try with say okay, and let's try with another day here. Say it's going to be, let's try with 5th Sunday again, 15/2018. Now it's not allowed. Now this time let's try with 16, which is going to be a Monday. Yes, that's true. So this is how, team, you can customize with your own formula and concatenate them to come up with several restrictions or data validation to a particular cell or at the entire range. The last one, I've given you another example of the number system where salary should be only numbers and there should be no text allowed. So for this, I need to again select the cell and then go with data validation, where I can switch it again to custom and say the simple formula is equal to is number. Now that basically will check if the cell contains only the numbers, nothing other than that. And F4 is the selected cell, and thus we are having it F4 here. Say okay, and let's try with another thing. Say for example ABC, not allowed. Let's try with the alphanumeric value. Say ABC 45, not allowed. But let's mention a salary rather. Say 10,000, accepted. Now let's apply it to the whole range again. Data validation, say yes, and now apply it to all. Say okay. Now let's try with another thing here. Say ABC 78 now, and then you try with 20,000. It says okay. So this is what is basically when you talk about the custom data validation, which allows you to create or make use of a number of formulas what you have in Excel to create your own criteria rather than depending on the predefined ones. You can find all these formulas under the formula tab, and you can see like I found the logical one of the AND formula from here. Then I found some of the information formulas which are here, like is error, is even, is formula, is logical, is text, is number, and so on. So you can, subject to all the formulas or the formulas which can assist you with these kind of data validation, you can utilize them, apply them, and definitely implement them. So hope team, it was interesting to you, and definitely it's going to be resourceful, and you are going to implement it yourself. So it requires a lot of practice and understanding of the formulas. So keep following to learn more about the formulas with me, and definitely it's going to be a great thing to minimize your efforts on learning of Excels. So today we understood about what exactly the custom data validation is and how it can be done with help of the formulas. Hope you enjoyed the video and definitely learned something new today. Do comment your queries, doubts, clarifications below so that I can get back to you with more details on the same and get it clarified. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel to get latest updates on the new videos about basic Excels and advanced. To get notified, do not forget to click on the bell icon. Thank you team for watching the video. Happy learning.